Alright, in this tutorial I am going to go over creating a new document in Photoshop and also reviewing or going over the selection tools and layers in Photoshop. So let's go ahead and begin. Our final product is going to be a smiley face. So in Photoshop we're using Creative Cloud. Go to Create New, and then when you get here you can click on one of the custom ones and you can manually change the dimensions of the file. Go ahead and make that 500 pixels. Make sure it's not inches, do pixels. Resolution, we're not printing this out, right? If we were, we'd want 300. You can leave the color mode and 8-bit as is. You can just rename this smiley face, right? That's going to be the name of the file. And then background contents, you can click right here. You can change it to a different color. I would change it to something, a color of your choice. And let's hit OK. And now we're going to click Create, right? And here's our canvas. If you don't have your layer palette up, go ahead and go to Window and Layers. And make sure you have your layer palette up because we're going to be using layers a lot in Photoshop. It's very important to stay in line with non-destructive editing techniques, and to do that we're going to use layers. Now your canvas right here, you can see the file size down at the very bottom right here. If you click on your magnifying tool or magnifying glass or the zoom tool, you can click and you can zoom in. And to zoom out, you can hold down Option, and you can see how that toggles back and forth to zoom back out, right? You also have these like fill screen, fit screen. I would yeah. So go ahead and practice zooming in, zooming out for a second. And then when you're done, go ahead and get it where you need, where it needs to be. And let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to have my layers up. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to create eyes. So we're going to click on, rather than making all the edits on one layer, we're going to do non-destructive editing, and we're going to apply each facial feature in a separate layer. So I'm going to go down to create a new layer. You can click right here down at the bottom of your layer palette. You can click and you can see it, new layer. You can rename that eyes, right? And once you click eyes, once you click eyes, you can click on it. And what you're going to do is you're going to go over here and you're going to go to you hold your cursor down, and I want you to select the elliptical marquee tool. And I want you to click and drag. And this is a selection tool, meaning if I were to use like my paint bucket or my paintbrush and try to click, nothing's happening because only the area inside this selected area is going to be affected. So if I click outside this, nothing's going to happen. If I do click inside it, this will it'll affect whatever's inside the selected area. If you make a selection you don't want or you mess up, you can hit Command D to take the selection away. So go ahead, make a circle, hit Command D to undo it, right, just to get practice. And now what we're going to do is we're going to create some eyes. So go ahead and making sure you're on your eye layer, click and drag. You can make an eye, select a color of your choice, right, and click OK. And I want you to use the paint bucket and color it in. Now, to deselect that, once again, you can hit Command D, right, to deselect it. And now you can create another eye on the other side, right? And click on the paint bucket, color that in, hit Command D to get rid of the marching ants, to get rid of this selected area. And now from here, we can go ahead and use your marquee tool again, your elliptical marquee tool, and let's continue working with those eyes. And you can change the color to the color of your choice. Go back to the paint bucket, color it in, and Now I'm going to go back and select the marquee, the elliptical marquee tool again, and maybe I'll have it looking over to this side. If you mess up, Command D will deselect it, right? And you can go back to your paint bucket, color that in. So now we have our eyes, right? We have our eyes, right? You can turn the layer on and off to see them. The next tool I want to show you is the marquee tool. The rectangle marquee tool, which is right here. So we're going to just make a rectangle nose. And to do that, what we want to do is we don't want to make it on the eyes layer. We want to go to New Layer. We want to double click and rename that nose. And it's really important to stay organized too. So nose, click on it. It's highlighted using the nose layer, and hold your cursor down, select the rectangle marquee tool, and go ahead and make a nose. You can change the color to a color of your choice, and then use your paint bucket. And if you don't see your paint bucket, just hold your cursor down. It might be embedded with a gradient. Select paint bucket tool, color that in, and remember Command D to deselect, right? And now we're going to make this smiley face, so or the mouth. And go ahead and click a new layer. Another way to create a new layer, if you don't want to do that, you can go up to Layer, and you can go to New Layer. That's another way of doing the same thing, and you can rename that mouth. Right? That's another way of doing that. Now, with the mouth, what I want you to do is I want you to use the lasso tool. So there's a bunch of different selection tools, and underneath the marquee tool, I want you to hold your cursor down and select the lasso tool. The lasso tool is just like a freehand selection tool, so you can click and hold and make a mouth. Now, if you don't like it, Command D to deselect and try it again. So go ahead and make some sort of mouth. Right? And you have this selected. You're on your mouth layer, and go ahead and go to your paint bucket and choose the color of your choice. And you can use the paint bucket to color it in, right? Command D. Now you can see that in non-destructive editing, we're making all our edits on separate layers, and this will give us flexibility to change or any future edits as needed, right? Rather than merging all these on one layer, it makes it really easy for future edits if you stay organized and use layers. Next part, eyebrows. So let's go ahead and create a new layer and go to eyebrow. Now, if you want to, we can rename this eyebrow, and we're going to select, we're going to do the polygonal lasso tool. And the polygonal lasso tool is embedded with the lasso tool. And, just click on it and see what it does. It clicks and sets a point, and then it gives a straight line until the next time you click again. And then if you double click, it'll set it. Or you can go back to your original spot, right? And you'll see like a little circle appear, right? So that's the lasso, or that's a polygonal tool. So what I want you to do is just set, right? Let's go ahead and make an eyebrow, right? And we can color it in using the paint bucket. Remember, color of your choice. Now, Command D. So we have an eyebrow right here. Well, what if we wanted the same eyebrow to be right here as well, right? So you can make a copy of a layer as well. If I click on this and I drag this down right here to the new layer, if I drag the eyebrow layer to a new layer, it'll make eyebrow copy. And now, if I use my move tool, I can move it over like so. And we can flip that around as needed, but I wanted to show you how to copy layers as well, okay? So that's copying layers, and you can rename that like left eyebrow and right eyebrow as needed. The last thing, if you want to use your paintbrush, the paintbrush is embedded with the pencil tool. You can click right here. And if I go back on my eyes, and let's say I wanted to add some wacky lines to my eyes, I can go down to my eyes, select the paintbrush, and you can select a color, and you can draw on it. If that's too small of a stroke, you can click right up here and change the size and the hardness of the stroke. So if you want it kind of a soft edge and a little bit bigger, you can do that as well. You can see kind of the difference. To go back, Command Z, like if I make a mistake, Command Z will undo your last action, which is kind of cool. So you can kind of play around. The rest of the time you can use a paintbrush, you can add a tongue, you can add some more wacky stuff to your face. Just make sure you use your layers and stay organized. And then when you're done, the last thing that I ask you to do is to, when you save it, File, Save As, right? File, Save As. What you want to do is when you save it, I want you to save it as a Photoshop file. It'll be a PSD file. That will preserve the layers. Make sure that this is checked. That'll preserve the layers. If you save it as a JPEG, right, what that's going to do is it's going to merge all these layers into one, and you won't have the flexibility of using your different layers next time you open the file. So when you save this, I want you to save as and save it as a Photoshop file to preserve those layers and stay in line with non-destructive editing.